Namaste. Life full of humility and giving nature transforms. It dissolves our ego. We become a contributor all the time. There is no moment of anxiety, duality, conflict. Anxiety, hatred, jealousy, anger, upset, all is due to the ego, and ego limits us. And that limitedness inside causes their problem, causes the anxiety. It has nothing to do with any person, people, relationship outside. And anything that is outside, you can get the treatment from the doctor. You have a stone in the gallbladder, go to the doctor, and doctor says, okay, no worries, we'll remove the entire gallbladder. But if you go to the doctor and say that, can you remove my ego? Can you do surgery of the ego? And the siblings of ego are attachment and detachment, likes and dislikes. A kind of delusion is created. What is that delusion? We all meet lot of people every day. People are people. Person is a person. A human being is a human being. But my mind colors the vision. I like this guy, I don't like. I hate this guy, I'm anxious because he has come again, she has come again. So you cannot have a surgery of that problem. And if there is a surgery, it can only be done by the Eastern wisdom, by understanding. All the journey of the external knowledge remains confined to the body or little bit of the mind. Eastern wisdom says we want to help you to know who you are. You're not anxiety, you're not stressed, you're not unhappy, you're not attached. No, but I'm attached, I'm anxious, I have a duality and a conflict because of the false I. The false I contains all these so-called, if you say them, qualities. Real I never. Did you understand that point? I look at you and my mind colors due to the projection, due to the past impression. So I don't see you as a wonderful human being, but I see through the eyes, through the mind of an attachment and detachment, and that results into anxiety. You are happy sitting at your home, and suddenly someone knocks the door. You open the door and you find your son, and the mind triggers those impressions. It means those impressions are already present there. That is why the trigger takes place. So our impressions are hidden deep inside the mind, and they resurface when the person comes in front, or we start thinking about that person, or we like that person, or we dislike that person. So, because of that likes and dislikes, because of the past impressions, my mind starts thinking in terms of avoiding, neglecting, fighting, or getting attached, or getting upset. So who is responsible for getting upset? I am. That mind should not create any likes and dislikes, must go out of my mind. Unless we understand. Unless we understand what lies within the mind, how mind responds to the people, relations, possessions differently. Unless we recognize it, the mind is not going to change. What to do? Understand why the mind behaves the way it behaves. That is what we are doing in the step 3. Because of the strong likes and dislikes, what to do? Change the mind. Change the attitude. When you change the mind, your attitude changes. How? Allow the mind to accept the higher power, higher intelligence. That is our today's topic. Ego prevents us to, false I prevents us to recognize the higher existence. Ego says, I am stressed because of you. I have a problem because of you. I am crazy because of you. And then I blame you are crazy, you made me crazy. I have to live into that awareness of the reality. Where is that awareness of reality? That this mind should not be dictated by outer situation, relations, people. But it does, it happens. Why it happens? Because of that false I contains those impressions. Can I replace that false I with a higher existence? That is higher intelligence. That is our today's topic. That is our today's topic. What is this higher intelligence? Some people say this higher intelligence is God. Some people say that higher intelligence is the supreme consciousness. That's what we are exploring. We want to explore. Unless you explore and understand, we cannot go further. We have also to understand there are basically 2 types of knowledge. One knowledge is the material knowledge. Material knowledge is you become a doctor, you are an engineer, you are an IT expert, you are a landscaping business, anything, anything, any knowledge that helps us to earn a certification, wealth, possession, some authority. That is very important to understand. The outer knowledge, the material knowledge, the knowledge of the matter, you become a physicist, meteorologist, doctor, engineer, IT expert, your professional trade, you get a certification. But that material knowledge do not help me to understand what are the likes and dislikes, attachment and detachment, emotional dependence, intellectual fantasy. We discussed last time, intellectual paralysis. Only it is the Eastern wisdom which digs deep inside this body, beyond the mind, and then it discovers that permanent peace and happiness, love and wisdom. Material knowledge always works on the world outside. And because it works on the world outside, it can buy us luxury, it can buy us comfort, it can find. And what happens during this process, that it confines the territory of the mind. The false I is created. It becomes so limited. Knowledge of the Eastern wisdom drops and dissolves this limitation of the false I. That is what we are trying to understand in the step number 3. Unless we change that attitude in the mind, attitude is a mental state we discussed last time. And that's why it's a lifelong journey. Material knowledge limits that I to the body, little bit of the mind cannot help to go inside. takes us inside. Eastern wisdom knowledge, it helps to remove all the limitations caused by the ego, caused by the likes and dislikes, caused and transforms and awakens. Remember one thing, suffering will never come to an end with the knowledge from outside. Suffering only can come to end by Eastern wisdom. You can remove the pain by physical body pain, by physical medication, but you cannot end the suffering. With that understanding, third step is that we have to find the that higher intelligence. What is that higher intelligence? Some people say God, but we are examining and understanding that intelligence. That intelligence is working all the time. It is always available. False eye hides that. Don't you see, sometimes you get upset with a person, and once the person has gone, you sit down and your mind says, I should not have done so. There is no reason to be anxious. Don't you see that? You have already told me. You have sent me messages that yes, I realize that I should not have done this. Who says I should not have done this? That is higher intelligence. And who did this? That is the false eye. Unless this false eye is replaced by the higher intelligence, we cannot bring an end to the suffering. And we learned in the second step that we have to become a contributor. We have not to remain as a consumer in our life. Why we have to become a contributor? That is another question. But what we are searching in the step 3, that if there is a higher intelligence and that is conscious, and if that is conscious, can I bring all my resources to live and think and speak and act in my life from that higher intelligence, which is already present? It is present here and now. We are going to understand that. Are you ready? Everything in the world is changing. Change takes place. There must be someone who brings that change. You leave your house for 200 years, it dilapidated, and it falls down. Any object in the matter, in the material world, just observe. You leave the vegetables outside your refrigerator, and after a few days, now it's so much of summer. It changes. Who changes that? How the seed becomes the tree overnight. No, not overnight. How the seed becomes the tree over a period of years. How orange tree always gives the orange fruit. How the mango tree always gives the mango fruit. They are grown in the same field. It is the same one earth. It is the same fertilizer. It is the same chemicals. It is the same water. How that water and a fertilizer soaked by a seed of an orange or a seed of a mango, what happens that they give? One gives the mango tree, another gives the orange tree. Can you imagine without intelligence it can happen? Do you realize that intelligence is working all the time? There is something that is working all the time, 24 by 7. There is intelligence behind any change. There must be a doer. There must be a doer. You go to the kitchen and prepare a cup of tea. with tea leaves and the water and the sugar and the milk. So you are the doer. You prepared the tea means you are the doer. You brought the change from the tea leaves, water, mixture, and you have a cup of tea. So there must be some doer, some knower behind all the changes that is taking place in the entire world. All the time, 24 by 7. We cannot break the rules of the universe. Understand it clearly. Pay attention. You have to listen to it again and again. Even before going to sleep early in the morning. So that you raise your awareness. You expand your mind. In the moment that you expand your mind, all side drops down. But we are our third. This is the step number 3. You offer everything to that intelligence. You ask that intelligence to live your life. There is no question of an anxiety, duality, and a conflict. So we are searching that intelligence which is behind every change, any change in the plants, in the matter, in the also in the solar system. Can you imagine without intelligence the earth is moving on its orbit, sun is moving on its orbit, and if there is no intelligence, if there is a slight change, they will strike against each other and the life is gone. Why don't we understand that? Why we totally rely blindly on our likes and dislikes that creates the false I? That intelligence is working in me, in you. Because of that intelligence, there is an orderliness. There is an orderliness in the solar system, galaxies. That is why the sun is moving in its orbit, the earth is moving on its orbit. They do not strike. The moon is moving. That is why the space is never filled. It's a universal law. The space is always empty. And because the space is always empty, do you see a connection between the space and you? False, I do not feel that. I cannot speak if there is no space. I cannot move my hand and fingers without the space. Universal law. Universal law is working here. Air. I sleep. I am totally unconscious. And that air is going in and out. I'm in sleep, almost like a dead, and a lot of physiological functioning are working. How can we imagine it does not work? There must be some knower. There must be some intelligence which is working all the time, helping me to live my life, and we make our life crazy. The space does not change its nature. Air does not change its nature. Water, fire does not change its nature. Have you heard? Oh, fire is very cool. Sun is like a like sun is like a moonlight. No. Universal law. There has to be an intelligence. That intelligence, religion called God, we say it is pure intelligence, it's the consciousness. And if the false I is offered, you offer your false I, you offer your likes and dislikes to that intelligence, it drops in dissolve. So we are learning that, how to offer. Water does not break its rule. Water, anywhere and everywhere, it is the same. If there is no rules are not broken, obviously there must be something powerful. Powerful than my false I, powerful than my attachment. We say it is consciousness. Can the mouse work on its own? No, it demands a conscious entity. I am holding it in my hand. Can the car drive by itself? Because of its mechanical, we have a self-driving car, but it is not conscious. Some intelligence is fed in the self-driving car so that the car drives with a limited capacity. Why I said that intelligence is working behind the galaxy and the solar system. Why I said this intelligence is working behind the plant, flora and the fauna. Why I said that the same intelligence is working in all of us. Why I said it is only one intelligence. To be intelligent, I have to be conscious. To have more intellectual power, that is different thing. That is inert. But to have an intelligence means conscious. Conscious means consciousness. Matter is inert. I told you, car cannot, a mouse cannot move. So some intelligence is always working. And that intelligence is consciousness. And that is the inner self of everything in the world. There is an inner self of the mouse also. How come? That inner self put all the parts of the mouse in orderliness, but that consciousness cannot manifest here because it does not have a medium. We have a medium, the mind. And what we have done with the mind? We overburdened the mind with the likes and dislikes. We have to get rid of it. That is our third step. How to do that? Offer your likes and dislikes, duality, anxiety, everything to that intelligence while sitting, closing your eyes, or eyes are open, or doing anything. How that is happening, you're talking to your son or daughter. Internally you are aware. Let me offer this meeting to that existence or to that intelligence. Let me see what is the best way I can offer myself, I can contribute. So when you think like this, anytime and everywhere, in all the events and situations in your life, the ego flies away from you, the false I flies away. False I contains dislikes and dislikes. That is what we are trying to understand. Third step is little deeper, but if we understand and we try to implement it, we will be in the state of meditation all the time. So we are understanding that there is an intelligence working behind everything, every object, every galaxy, solar system, flora and the fauna, including me and you. That intelligence is one. That is common. And that is the inner self of everything. It is conscious. It does not change, but it changes. It does not change, but it affects the change. But if it changes, then it will forget. No, I forget. That intelligence says, I forget to move the earth in this particular orbit. It will forget. Then you can have a mango fruits in the orange tree. Nothing happens like this, my friend. Same thing. Only the human being has this ability to recognize, to realize this intelligence, that inner self is our real self. It is the real self. It is the same of everything. So when we understand this, what did we find? The cause of that entire existence is consciousness. It cannot be matter. Pay attention. It's another important aspect that we are understanding in the step 3. It has to be a conscious entity. So it is consciousness. If it is consciousness, that is should I say that? If it is consciousness, it is beyond time and the space. Because consciousness pervades everywhere. And if the time and the space, then if it is in the time and the space, then it is finite. Finite means change. That is why it is infinite. There is no modification. It is all powerful. It is all pervading. It is not changing, but it is superimposed by the false I, causing the likes and dislikes, duality, and a conflict. Now the time has come that every day we wake up in the morning and just you close your eyes and become aware of the movement to the earth, the solar system, become aware of the space and the air and the water and the earth, become aware of the flora and fauna, and recognize that intelligence is working behind all of them. Then move the mind deep inside the heart and just become aware of that intelligence, that consciousness, which is also working behind. So that intelligence is different from the matter. That intelligence is different from the body. That consciousness is different from the body and the mind and the intellect and all of our false I, anxiety, duality, and a conflict. So what happens once you have recognition and you offer yourself through mentally and emotionally? No, let me offer my anxiety to that. Let me offer my likes and dislikes to that. You simply think. No, I don't have a feeling. First, you repeat this thinking. After a few weeks, thinking will also invoke the feeling and a right emotion in you. That consciousness in religion is called the God. We are saying consciousness, we are saying it intelligence. Inner self is not believed. That is the beauty of the Eastern wisdom. We say don't believe in the inner self. Just understand what is the inner self and then approach inner self. It has to be known and realized consciously. So when we say everything is done by the nature, no. Everything is done by intelligence, consciousness present in that nature. Everything is done by the body, no. Because of that consciousness, that inner self, presence of the inner self helps the body to carry out its activities. How can you imagine, how can you think body is a dead matter? When body is dead, and if the body is intelligence, then it will continue to function. Then the body has no way to die. There has to be something inside. Inside your body, inside my body, inside every object of this universe. So Eastern wisdom says we contemplate and reflect, recognize the crocodile works in a different way to catch its prey because of the intelligence. The mosquito is on my hand, sucks the blood because of that intelligence. My pets show me the love and affection because of that intelligence. It is not because of the matter. There is some definite entity. There is some definite entity. That inner self is the real self, and how to recognize the other self, the false I. When you are in anxiety, when the I constantly changes, you have likes and dislikes, duality and a conflict, you are not able to perceive and communicate with that intelligence. That is what we say the false I. So we have two I's. One is the false I, the other is the inner self, the real I. All the time they are present. They are present together. They are working like a twin brother. So when the false I works, it hides the inner self. When the inner self comes in the front, the false I flees away. When you are bubbling with energy, when you are in calmness, when you feel the sense of joy within you, that intelligence is working, because the nature of that consciousness is always peace and happiness. False I, limited in intelligence. How come it is limited? Because it has to recall your past impression, what is already accumulated. But that inner self is the intelligence of everything in the cosmos, and we can access that. It is within, that is the inner self. So when I leave a problem, when I drop a problem or anxiety to that inner self, the inner self drops and dissolves it. That is behind the false I. Limited I thought, which is always, that is unlimited I, which is always free, happy, unlimited intelligence, all powerful because it drives its power and the intelligence from the one supreme intelligence. Are you understanding? Write to me after listening couple of times. How do we recognize? How do we recognize the false I and the real I? The false I keeps on changing. No, no, but how do you recognize it? Here and now. So when you say I'm upset in the morning, after 2 hours I'm relaxed. So that I from the upset now relaxed, and then the same I says, let me have a cup of coffee. Now the third I in the afternoon, again you are anxious, I'm anxious, that is the fourth I, and then you lie down on the bed, I'm totally disturbed, or I'm sleeping soundly. So how many eyes? From one eye we change to the second eye, the third eye. Behind that false eye there is a real eye. So it means if the eye is constantly changing, that is not real. That is the recognition. You are in anxiety. Before that you were not. So you have to be aware. You just say in your mind that this is not me. Anxiety is not me. The moment you say internally, you are aware of that. And that awareness helps you instantly to drop that moment of suffering. Changing I, that inner I, that inner self never changes. Yeah, it is pure consciousness. It is present everywhere. It need not to change. Change means that if I separate myself from the entire existence. Are you getting it? A little bit deeper principle, but not very difficult to understand. Why it is difficult? The false I makes it difficult. So when the false I says I did not understand, listen it again. Contemplate and reflect. False I changes minimum 20,000 times every day. Minimum. One of my masters used to say that it changes minimum 20,000 times. Why we are confused, why we are anxious, it is because of so many eyes we have. One eye stretches to the other eye, fights, third eye enjoys the pleasure, fourth eye enjoys a cup of coffee. These are all. Do you see that? That is why I have always given that step in every practice, being carefree. That false I lives with the false ideas, false thought. So once you have that I, false I, that keeps changing. The moment you say I am into anxiety, the mind behind that has already a presence of likes and dislikes. How can you be in anxiety without likes and dislikes? Think of it. Can you say I'm happy to be anxious? Can you say, I'm happy to be unhappy? Can you say that? No, you cannot say. I'm very happy to be dissatisfied by my son or kids. Can you say that? Why? That real I is present here. But if it is absent, why it is absent? The false I takes over, it hides the real I, we lose our awareness, and then the journey of the unending suffering begins. That is what the intellectual fantasy is. That is what the intellectual paralysis is. That is what the emotional dependence is. So now, instead of emotional dependence, intellectual fantasy, and paralysis, our mind thinks that let me drop all my challenges of this false I to the supreme consciousness. You just say in your mind. We are trying to understand, is there an entity behind every object in the material world, living species, including me and you? How do we understand? We have to find out the cause behind the effect. What is the effect that is changing? So there is some cause, and that cause is intelligence. That intelligence is consciousness. That consciousness is present everywhere. Everywhere means in every object means what? It is all pervading. So it need not to change. It is an unchanging. That is the inner self. How do we compare the false I and the real I? By when the I keeps on changing, you recognize and you simply brush aside. No, it's changing. I do not belong to this I. And the moment you brush aside this changing I, you also drop all your expectations and emotional dependence and intellectual fantasy. My expectations, my attachment, my likes and dislikes pushes me to stick, to freeze down, to be limited. That is what the fantasy is. Look at this intelligence. Do you make the cell alive or dead? You rub your hand, 50,000 cells have already died and replaced by the new cells. It is done by the same inner self. Every 7 years, the body changes, done by the real inner self, that intelligence. You eat your food, you need not to digest, you need not to think how to digest the food. The food has to be digested by that intelligence. The blood circulates in the arteries and the veins because of that intelligence. I can see you because of that intelligence. You are listening to me because of that intelligence. Some people have wonderful physical ears, but behind that physical ear, if the consciousness is not there, we are deaf. We cannot hear. You cannot listen to me, I cannot listen to you. Same thing with eyes. Sometimes you have seen the people have beautiful structure of the eyes, the physical, but if that faculty of intelligence is not present in the eyes cannot see, tongue cannot taste. We have a false notion. Look at the entire world of body. Body is infant, then childhood, then youth, then old age. Did we do that? It is happening through the intelligence. Body follows the laws of change. We cannot stop aging. We can delay. We grow vertically to a certain height because of the intelligence. Because of the bad habit, it's a different thing. Because of the false eye, we create a big belly. We expand horizontally. Because of that intelligence, his body is subjected to birth and death, means the change. But that inner self does not change. It remains as it is. The moment you claim you are the body, you are subjected to the change. You have a fear, genuine, so-called wrong fear or a genuine fear because of the false eye. How can I be the body? Body has changed 7 times, and I am. I am still I am. Do you see that? If we are 49 years old, it means this body has replaced each and every cell 7 times. That is what the science says. So if I am the body, it means I have changed 7 times. I have to forget everything what I learned in the past, but I remember everything. That remembering goes to the intelligence. I have a false notion. Life and the life or the breath, just check it, life and the breath, it is energy. Demands energy at a regular interval. Don't we demand energy at a regular interval? That's why we experience hunger and thirst. We eat food and hunger is gone. But I'm not the breath. We get hypnotized and mesmerized by the false eye. We become impulsive. That is why we become impulsive. Then go to the mind, look at the mind. It creates an emotional dependence. And because of the emotional dependence, it experiences the pain and the pleasure, sorrow and the joy, because of likes and dislikes. Intellect carries a strong likes and dislikes. So what happens in the moment of anxiety, stress, duality? Does the inner self is present? Yes, it is always present. But then why I get into anxiety? Because the mind stops thinking, because of the false eye. It gets obsessed with those ideas and the thoughts of the likes and dislikes. Because of the non-thinking, we have a likes and dislikes. And because of the likes and dislikes, we are attached and non-attached. Because of the attachment and non-attachment, we have a sorrow and the joy. And so all together are summarized and creates an I thought. What is this I thought? It is the false I. Then our intellect stops thinking to find out what is right and wrong. When it forgets, it stops thinking what is right and wrong. Mind takes over the intellect. Then mind starts working through the impulses and emotional dependence. And because it is working through the emotional dependence, the intellectual fantasy comes. Mind says, I am the body, I am the mind, I am the intellect, I am the life. So all kinds of fear, anxiety, duality, reaction are ready in my system to live my life, and I feel the frustration. I told you the story of cops and the president bodyguard. So different I should become the cop to protect my real life. They should not dictate over. Do you still remember the story? It is required. Cops are required to maintain a law and order in the society, to handcuff the criminals, but not to the one who recognizes, follows the laws of a change. Same thing here. President is protected by the same cops, and the same cops handcuffs the criminal. So handcuffs the criminal means when the false I takes over, that is the result. So that is our third step. We have to identify that consciousness, that inner self, and then we dedicate all our actions to quieten this false I, to dissolve this false I. How? But just in the beginning, you just say things. You have a moment of a thought of an anxiety, and you say, "Let me offer this thought of an anxiety to the inner self." Just you say that and wait. Again, the mind returns with that same reaction, you offer it again. Inner self is the inner self of every being, object, action, and change. In the beginning, it may look like superficial, but if you do it every day, that thought will create a genuine positive feeling in you. Dedicate, you simply dedicate and offer. This does not belong to me, as if this is just a garbage. Where is garbage? You put into the dustbin and let it be taken care of. You don't care that. So we declare all these actions. That is the meaning of the prayer. Do you see from where I am going and where I have reached? When you dedicate or drop all actions, all experiences to that inner self by thinking, that is the real prayer. We may have different prayers in different religions. Sarvesham swastir bhavatu. That is a recognition that happiness is the essential nature of everyone, including me. How come that happiness is there? It is because of the inner self. I never talked about this, so I only talked about that we are of the nature of peace and happiness, but we are of the nature of peace and happiness because of that inner self. Because of that, air remains the air. Because of that exists, because of that intelligence, the water remains the air. Water does not behave like a fire. Whether we say worship of the prayer means, worship of the prayer simply means a recognition that there is a consciousness or existence which is above my ego. I do not recognize my false I, claims I am the real I, and then the journey to the suffering begins. Never forget. If the I keeps on changing, that is the false I. It is imagined I. Behind that imagined, constantly changing I, there is a real I. No. Can I understand by an example? Yes, let me give an example. Is there a moonlight? Yes, in the dark we see them. But does the moon has a light of its own? No. Moon cannot see this. And second, it borrows the light from the sun. Clear? The moon cannot see the sun. Now that moon cannot see the sun because it is the sunlight, reflected sunlight. So sunlight reflects on the moon. It appears as if there is a moonlight, and that moonlight is our false eye. Same thing happens with us. Mind is the medium, mind is the moon. Sun is the real self. So sunlight falls on the moon, that is the meaning, the consciousness falls on the moon. It creates a reflected consciousness. That is moonlight. That moonlight is our false I, our individuality, our ego, and whatever you want to say. Does moonlight exist? Yes and no. I see the moonlight is there, but still, I know now it is the sunlight. The same way, when I'm into anxiety, I become conscious. That consciousness beyond and behind anxiety reaction to. Now we have understood. So when you understand, you recognize and you offer all the challenges to that existence, to the inner self, is known as the prayer. There is another way. By recognition, you stop the false I to become a doer and the experiencer. That is another way of doing the prayer. I am stressed, I am a doer. I did this to you and you did not change, I am still the doer. I am very happy drinking a cup of tea. Now the happiness is inside. That happiness expressed when I started taking a cup of tea. Anytime you feel that there is a doer in you, there is an experiencer in you, drop that and by thinking, offer that as if you are offering a. What is the offering a prayer? I have already told you. This does not belong to me. Are you a doer or an experiencer? As long as you see that, am I a speaker? Just take an example. That is how the ego works. So you will say, no, no, you are speaking to me, I'm listening to you. No, no, but you examine. First, let you examine me. Am I a speaker? So, who is the speaker? Lips are moving, tongue is there, the breath is going in and out, larynx are working. So now ask yourself, am I the lips? No. Am I the larynx? No. Am I the tongue? No. Am I the ear? No. Now, where is this false I? It does not exist. That very recognition means you have offered a prayer. Or simply by using the thought, you can say. Now ask yourself, are you a listener? No, no, my ears are listening. So are you your ears? No. What is behind the ears is the mind. Mind understands, yes. But does the mind have a consciousness? No. So the inner self offers the consciousness. I said to you, sun reflects on the moon. Moon is the mind. And that mind has an I thought, and that I thought is the ego, and that causes it. That is created because of the non thinking, misunderstanding, misconception, and then there is a problem. I thought is a false I. In the step 2, we have understood to change our attitude and then perform the action. So there is no doer and the experiencer there. If you go to the previous lessons. In the step 3, in the absence of that false I, we replace it by recognizing that consciousness is within me. Sorry. So, in the step two, ego, we learned ego thrives on doership, enjoyership. Doership, I have done it. I am speaking. I have proved that I am not speaking. Consciousness is manifesting, expressing itself in the form of a speaker. Experiencer. Experiencer, the body and the mind. And that I thought is the imagined I. That imagined I is the doer and the experiencer. We live in ignorance. Ignorance causes this suffering. Third step means then there is some intelligence behind, there is some consciousness behind everything and everything in the world. That is why we understood the step one about the real self, that it is the same inner self, it is the same intelligence, it is the same consciousness, rules, works behind every change, every object, inert or conscious or living. It is only one. It is a cosmic intelligence, and that cosmic intelligence, you may say God or the real self. Here we say it is the inner self. And in the step two, then we say, oh, let us change our attitude not to remain as a doer and the experiencer in our daily working. Means you need to just remain aware of that. Oh, let the consciousness do this work for my son, for my daughter, or whatever it is. You remember, you remind your mind. And then comes the third step. So basically, third and the fourth step attack the root cause of the suffering. How we suffer? Desire, attachment, detachment, likes and dislikes, pain and the pleasure, sorrow and the joy, duality and a conflict and a fear, desire, greed, anxiety, delusion, pride, jealousy, etc., etc. So by the third and the fourth step, we get rid of this. We attack the root cause. The fourth step is coming next week. No, I still have lot of attachment. Yes, you use that attachment. Get attached to that consciousness. Get attached and become aware how I'm attached to that intelligence which helps every living being to continue to live and exist, every galaxy system to work. You start thinking in that way. Loosen the hold of that ego. Another fine tuning is that we are always living in a giving mode. That is the meaning of the prayer in the offering. I'm always in a giving mode. Say, for example, you meet your son or anyone, your mind starts thinking, how can I contribute to his and her happiness and the joy? What will happen? Your mind will get rid of the likes and dislikes. You have no chance to get into anxiety. You are breaking the shell of the ego. We give less importance to a doer, causing ego. We give more importance to becoming a contributor, or you start thinking how best I can do it. that helps us to change our very nature that is very much required. Thank you very much.